you. Yeah, yo. There whenever it matters, and even more when you feel like it doesn't. Protect you so you never feel like you wasn't. Know I'm right alongside you. Either that or I'm behind you, but always got you. End of discussion, nothing means more. First one to offer is shoulders for what you reach for. Thought I saw the eyes of the world until I seen yours. And know that I ain't see a better view yet. I'm with whatever, so don't ever you fret. Know that you covered, not a hurdle or a heartbreak. A change what a partake, cause none of them won't ever get comfortable in your walkway. My job is to aware you, fully loaded, prepare you for all of the above that I'm never letting get near you. But still in all, give you every advantage I found. Couldn't find a better fit for them, along with my crown. And since the baton was passed, I've been down. Cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
Let's see. Welcome. How you doing, sir? How you doing, Cory Tyler? How you doing, sir?
I'm good. You know, I listened to your podcast, Ishmael, and one of the things I loved about it is that you asked your guests, you know, how's your heart?
Oh, you just took that from me, man. I'm gonna ask you that, but it's all good. It's all good, brother. But how's your heart?
Well, I just got to tell you, man, I really resonated when you asked your guest, the particular podcast I was listening to, that question, because so many times, you know, the conventional, hey, how are you? How you doing? You know, and it becomes something that we're so used to. But when you think about it, slowing down, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And I think it's so important, especially with the work that I do, to really begin with that. Like, literally, how are you feeling in this moment? Good, bad, sad, indifferent? And that can create a connection with people when we really authentically ask that question. So that's what I love about your platform already, brother.
I know. I appreciate you for bringing that up. But how's your heart? Let's get into it. How's your heart at this moment?
Yeah, and I was thinking about it because I knew you were going to ask me. And I said, you know, I was checking in with myself. And I said, well, you know, and in this moment, I'm feeling excited because, you know, you reached out to me and offered this opportunity to find out more about what I'm up to. I'm also excited about this event that me and my colleagues have coming up this Saturday. So I'm excited. I'm curious to learn from you. I'm also happy, you know, that for me, happiness is a skill. It's a practice. And so when I put those together, excited, curious, and happy, that's where my heart is right now.
And let's dig deep into being curious, because I know you have a history. You know, I did my research, and so you have a history of being curious, especially from your father. You know, like, talk about that, because that didn't come from anywhere.
Yeah. So I'll start off with a little bio, if that's helpful. About,
Yes,
you know,
definitely go for it, brother.
Yeah. So for those who may not know, I am a son of an entertainer. Back in the 1970s, my family moved out from Detroit, and my dad started in Detroit. He's a ventriloquist, and a well-known ventriloquist, and as far as I know, the only black ventriloquist of his era, at least. His name is Willie Tyler and Lester. And so my dad has a comedy act and came out here traveling with Diana Ross and the Supremes and Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder because they were all a part of the Motown family at that time. And so was he. And so in the 70s, you know, he became more popular and famous and moved out to Los Angeles, where he and my mom had me. And so I grew up amongst show business. And by extension of that, I went into show business. And early on, I was doing TV commercials. And then during my teenage, I started to do television. And then I really enjoyed acting a lot. And in the early 90s, I found myself booking a television show called A Different World,
Yes.
which was the spinoff of The Cosby Show, and it was about a historically black college in the South. And we actually filmed it out here in Los Angeles. Matter of fact, it's almost a full circle event for me because I live about 5 minutes from where we shot that show today. So early on, being in the eye of show business and movement and activity, it was quite a lot for someone who is going to college during the day, UCLA, and then the folks at Different World allowed me to do the show as well at the same time. So I was learning early on about behavior and how people acted, and especially this idea of, what's your latest show that you're working on? What's the latest thing that you have to promote? And that was sort of inferring value. Like if I had a show or if I had a book or I had an album, therefore my value was inherently greater than if I didn't.
That's right.
And so my journey shifted. And so after A Different World, I did a few other shows. But for me, acting wasn't something.
But real fast, brother, talk about that, being a part of that monument to music video, MoonWalker. Talk about that, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, I did my research.
You did your research, Ishmael. Wow. Yeah. So one of the things that was just, it stands out in my mind of the things that I did is the film MoonWalker, which many people know is the Michael Jackson movie. And so this was, I think in 1988, 89. And at the time I was also, speaking of value, when you're in Hollywood, you have to be the triple threat, actor, dancer, singer. So I did all that stuff. And at the time I was in a singing group, and the guy that brought the singing group together was a choreographer who was the choreographer on MoonWalker for this specific segment called Baby Bad or Badder. And so it was a reenactment of Michael Jackson's Bad video with a bunch of kids.
Oh, wow.
And so it was the late Russell Clark, a fantastic choreographer, God bless his soul. And he actually hired me to be one of the kids, one of the ensemble for this reenactment of the Bad video. And it was amazing. So I got to work on a Michael Jackson project. I got to meet Michael Jackson, and it was fantastic. One of the things that I'll always treasure in one of the things that I've done.
That's awesome. But then also talk about, because you being a child, then a couple of years later, I think, was it a year later, a couple of years later, the video game came out. So how did you feel about the video game? Like, you were a part of this experience of this epic video, and then they translated into a video game. How did you feel that as a child? Like, they have a video game, MoonWalker video game.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's actually news to me, because as you share that, in the back of my mind, I can remember something around that, but at the time it didn't even faze me. It wasn't something that was in my sphere of awareness. But it's so interesting, because nowadays, when you see a movie and you see a video game and you see some music connected to something, even an NFT, in digital assets and stuff like that, it's like we just assume that there's going to be this full offering of things. And back then it was like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, you would go and see a movie, and then it would be 2 years later until the sequel came out. And now it's like you can go on Netflix and binge watch something, several seasons or movies. So it's like the consumption rate is totally different now than, when I was growing up in the 80s.
That's amazing, man. It's that you're a part of history, especially with your father, like, and then MoonWalker, and then other things too. Like, a lot of people don't know, like, you did a episode on Married with Children. You were on 90210. You were on Night Rider. Like, some of these classic shows you were a part of that a lot of people don't know. Like, if you do your research and you realize, like, you've been a part of some epic shows. Like, talk about that, like, now as, as you're, you're into like what you're focused on, but like
Yeah,
looking into the past, like do
yeah,
you like at shock at all? Like you were a part of some epic um TV shows.
yeah, yeah. And it was a lot of fun too. Thank you for that because it allows me to kind of go down memory lane. And I think a part of it for me, the passion was, I really enjoyed show business, especially seeing my dad doing what he was doing. And there was a part of me that's like, um, oddly enough, I enjoyed in front of the camera, but I really enjoyed being behind the scenes because that's when I got to see these people that were actors and producers and directors, but them as human beings. And I think that's why it kind of informs the work I do today, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, working with Debbie Allen on A Different World was extraordinary. I worked on a show called Kids Incorporated, which is,
Remember that?
yeah, you remember that. I was actually a backup dancer for that show. I worked with Whoopi Goldberg on a Nickelodeon film with Tobey Maguire. Um, so there were many instances where I was like rubbing elbows with, you know, people that would later and in those moments become, larger than life. I work with Tisha Campbell, Bill Cosby, of course, Kadeem Hardison and Jasmine Guy, and Jada, of course, on A Different World. So all of that it was like surreal. And then at the same moment, it was like, no, Cory, this is really happening.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, because I grew up in show business, there was a slight allure of, wow, look at these larger than life people. But because I've been in show business, after a while, that kind of waned. And I was like, oh, these are human beings here to, perform and, get paid and do what they love. So it was quite an interesting experience.
And then also talk about that transition too. Is like you work with these actors and then doing what you're doing when it comes to just mental health. Because that's the one thing
Yeah.
too, is like we don't have a conversation when you have these people that's in the public eye and you never ask the question, how are they doing mentally? Because everybody's
Mm-hmm.
coming at them like this and this and this and this. What are you doing next? What you doing next? But overall, how are you doing mentally? So what was that transition for you from doing acting
Yeah.
to like going into the mental health aspect, into the mental
Yeah.
health world?
Yeah. I think that's what actually informed my going into mental health. So just to give you a snapshot of what happened is as I was doing TV shows and commercials and whatnot, I went to UCLA and I got my Bachelor of Arts degree in theater. And the idea was, hey, I'm going to continue to do this. And I'd like to do movies and things of that nature. And as I continued to live life, I realized it's like, okay, I really want to do this thing. But after a while, it's like, to make it sustainable, to make it something that I'm able to do and sustain myself financially, it's like that's where the disconnect came. So I was like, oh man, this is harder than I thought. What else can I do? And so I actually shortly thereafter, I started working at a church, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the camaraderie of the people. And one day, I picked up this book. It was called Nonviolent Communication: The Language of Life. Because on being on set, it was sort of like a petri dish where I could observe human behavior, and I was fascinated by it. And that's why I love the movies. I love seeing, conflict get resolved, or I love seeing the arc of a character. And so when I read this book, it really opened my eyes because it gave me a view of communication that was different than what I was used to. And what I was used to was, hey, I just want to be a good guy. I want to be loved by everyone. I want to be liked by everyone, and especially as an actor. And so there was this idea that I would walk around with. And as I look back at it, I wasn't conscious of it at the time, but it was very real for me, which was, if you like me, then I like me.
Right.
And that's how I lived most of my life, in being a people pleaser and just wanting to be loved and feeling like if I can get acceptance from everyone, that would equate to love. And, as you go through, as I went through my 20s and 30s, I realized that that was more of um, a hopeful wish than an actual durable strategy. And then it became the question, do I like myself? And I said, wow. So when I picked up this book at the church that I was working at, it moved my life in a different direction. And I remember that it was in March of 2012 where I became aware of this model of communication and mediation called nonviolent communication, and my life changed forever.
I think like kind of talk about that non-violent communication, because that's important, because a lot of people don't know what that means. So if you can kind of elaborate, what does non-violent communication means?
Yeah. So many people look at that phrase, nonviolent, particularly nonviolent communication. When you tell someone, hey, this is something that I study, initially, people, in my experience, do not see themselves as nonviolent.
Right.
So they're like, well, what does this have to do with me? Because I don't perceive myself as being violent at all.
Right.
And so when we're able to slow down and look at the fact that at a very early age, we look at these two poles. One is reward and one is punishment. And if I'm a good guy, I get rewarded. And if I'm a bad person, I get punished. And so what we end up adopting in many cases is language that is domination oriented. And so we try to, at least I did, I tried to live on the side of being the good guy at all costs, and realizing that the language that's around that whole container about being a good person or a bad person can be violent.
Right.
So just the implication of you're a bad boy, you're a bad person, and now you're going to be punished. And I recognize in the larger context of things, that can be almost a very useful strategy for humans, right? Because we know how to segregate the good from the bad. It provides context and meaning. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of harm that does. Because if we're living our lives basically either striving to be good or trying to avoid punishment, it becomes a very constrictive way of living. And there entails, judgments about, am I a good person? Am I a bad person? And what does that mean? And then what does it mean if there are other bad people or there are other good people? And so the language itself can become very, very violent when we look at life through the lens of reward and punishment. And so what nonviolent communication does is it gives us a different lens. And it says, okay, we understand the domination type of thinking, but we'd like you to put on another set of glasses. And the other set of glasses looks at people as having feelings or emotions or needs and values. And so it's less about good or bad. It's more about, going back to the word I used earlier, curiosity. And so it allows me to look at life and look at human beings through the lens of, we all have feelings and we all have needs. And then when I'm able to observe human behavior through that lens, I find that I am more connected to the human experience versus trying to walk around and micromanage or correct people.
And that's very true. I think curiosity is the big word in the conversation, because I think it's important for us to be curiosity, to have curiosity, but also question things too, because that's a part of evolving as a human being. Is you want to question things, because at the end of the day, you want answers, and it makes you a better person. And how do you apply that into your household as being, a father,
Yeah.
So how do those how can I think of that word? Those rules apply into your household?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. So, for me as a dad, I have two wonderful boys and a stepdaughter. And for me, that is the greatest classroom, because, there's this idea that as being a parent, there's this hierarchy, right? And the parent sits up on the throne, and the children are these submissive people that have to follow suit. And I understand the importance of boundaries. I get that. But I find myself learning a heck of a lot from my children, maybe even more sometimes than they might be learning from me. I don't know. So for me, curiosity plays a role because there's two roads I can take in any given moment as a parent. And one could be the road of curiosity. What is that? Right? Or it can be from this idea of criticism. So I'm the parent, and these are my rules, and this is how things go, and there's no wiggle room there. And I understand about having boundaries and being very clear about expectations. I understand, I believe expectations can be healthy. But for me, asking the question, what is that, before I go into reprimand or punishment, can be very, very useful for me, because I feel like I am experiencing with my children versus being a helicopter parent and being over them. So, case in point, we went on a vacation last week. We went up to Lake Tahoe, and it was great. I was with my girlfriend and her daughter, my stepdaughter, and my two boys, and we just had a phenomenal time. And there are times where my boys will do and say things, and the part of the dad comes out. It's like, guys, cut it out. Da, 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 da. And so there's a lot of that, but I realize that what I tend to do is to couple my parenting with some context. And so what I'll do is I'll have a little sidebar with my eldest son, who's 12 going on 40. And I'll say, hey, let's talk about this. I'm really curious why you chose X, Y, or Z in this moment. And one day, my youngest son, I tried that tactic. I just asked him, and I said, so when you tussle with your brother, tell me what's going on with you? I'm really curious. And he goes, Dad, he's just so punchable. And I said, okay, well, there's honesty. So to wrap that up with nonviolent communication, what I love about it is that it's really a language of honesty, and not honesty from a sense of judgment, but an honesty where we connect with the language of the heart. How in any given moment, to your point, how is your heart? How are you feeling? And our feelings are actually feedback. So I have clients who I get on the phone with, and they'll tell me about something that's really going on that's challenging for them. And a lot of times we try to focus on the good feelings, not so much the bad or uncomfortable feelings. But I actually invite what we would call the uncomfortable or nasty feelings, because those are part of our the kaleidoscope of our emotions. And so they're actually helpful. They're these feedback mechanisms that are giving our body information. So if my client says to me, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling really sad, that to me is very useful. And I encourage them to share those feelings, because then the second part of nonviolent communication is that those feelings, we need those feelings, because those can then connect us to what our needs are. So for example, if someone is feeling sad or depressed, angry, I want to hear all of that.
Right.
And then what we do is we connect that. So tell me about angry. Tell me about feeling really disconnected from yourself or frustrated. And then someone will say, if I'm talking to them long enough, they'll say, well, I'm frustrated because, I didn't get this job. Okay, I feel you. So right here in this moment, you have a need for sustainability or contribution or purpose. And then the light goes on and they're like, yeah. And in that moment, it's like, oh, so that's why I'm feeling this way. The reason I'm feeling is because I have an unmet need. And that's the essence, to distill it down. And obviously there are other pieces to the model, but it's this idea of when I stay connected to how I'm feeling and what I'm needing, I get clarity. And when I get clarity, I can then take actions and move forward with that clarity in a very useful and helpful way.
And you just answered my question, because my next question was, how do you relate to modeling the behavior, not to your kids, but to other parents? Because I think that's an important thing. Because when you see parents seeing you handle your kids, you know, that's important too, because they'll say, oh, this is working for them, for working for you. This is might work for me. So, you know, I know you answered that question a little bit, but if you want to go into a little bit more of just modeling that behavior, how you towards your kids impact your how like other parents that see you with
Yeah.
your kids.
Yeah. And so that's actually a really great segue, because we have an event coming up on Saturday called International Black Men's Day. And I have a men's group that I'm a part of. And what's beautiful about our men's group is that it's international. We got a brother from Nairobi, Kenya, another brother from Cameroon, two brothers from Connecticut, oddly enough, another brother from Cleveland. And we all practice nonviolent communication. And it's had a wonderful impact on us individually and with our families and whatnot. But the greatest benefactor of NVC, and we call it NVC for short, nonviolent communication, and the short representation of that is NVC. I'm the greatest benefactor, because it's about how I talk with myself. So before I even do any modeling with the kids, before I even do any connection with other parents, it goes to how am I communicating with myself? And if I find that I'm a human being, I have judgments, I have good days and bad days, all of that. It comes down to, what is it that I'm telling myself in those moments? What is that voice inside my head? And, you know, going back to my acting days, where I had a very critical internal voice. And I would imagine, talking to some of my friends who are actors, it's like you anticipate how you can be the best actor, and a lot of times that's informed by getting notes. Right. So let's say that I go to an audition, and the producer says, that was good, but try it this way. And so as actors, we kind of develop that mechanism of trying to adjust and make adjustments before we're even told what the adjustment is. And so this critical engine begins to develop inside about, we can actually criticize ourselves pretty harshly. And I don't know about you, Ishmael, but I can be very good at that. And it's almost this idea of like, well, I'm going to criticize myself before you have a chance to criticize me. So to go back to your question, the modeling of nonviolent communication begins first and foremost with how I talk with myself. And so how does that differ than having that judgmental, you know, yakety yak going on? It begins with a practice of what I call self-empathy. And so I may have that judgmental yakety yak going, Cory, you really stunk that up. You really, how could you do that? What kind of person do you think you are? And it's not that that little voice goes away. It's that when that voice is going and yakety yakking, I can apply some self-empathy. And what that could look like is, I remember one day I was late to picking up my boys from school, and my judger just started going in. Bro, how can you do this? You say you're a dad, and da-da-da-da. They were waiting, and they were wondering where you were. And I let that play out, and then I said, wow, I realize in this moment, I'm just really doing the best that I can. And I feel really bad. I'm bummed about the fact that I was not here at the time that I wanted to be for my children. And I realized that in any given moment, I'm just really trying to be the best person that I can be for myself and for others. And in this moment, if I could do it all over again, I would do it differently in terms of my schedule and whatnot. So that's an example of the yakety yak voice, and then the practice of self-empathy. And then that's the clarity that I speak about earlier, is that when I'm able to get clear on, oh man, I was just trying to do the best that I could. And I was trying to do X, Y, and Z, and I found myself over on this part of town, and that's what ended up happening. Instead of it being an indictment of my wrongness, it's more about a curiosity about what I was doing to try to fulfill my needs. So I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking, so I'll just slow
No,
down.
no, 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 no. This is perfect because this is important information because that leads into my next question of what you and your team are trying to do with this Saturday for International Black Men Day, which I think is an awesome idea because, again, when you talk about black men, we're often cut off by borders, right? When you talk about black men, we always talk about the black men issues in America, but the black man issue in America is no different from if a black man's in the UK, if a black man's in Germany, wherever you spin the globe, the issue are still the same. And I love how you're bringing black men together all over the globe to have this conversation about brotherhood, my brother's keeper, and how do we navigate cheering our brother's success and creating a safe space on a global level. Because often
Yeah.
when we talk about safe space, we usually talk about in a local area, which is a vital, but also you're stepping out of the box. You're thinking global because it's important that when you talk about the Black experience, it's the Black experience on a global level, not just in just America. It's a global, it should be a global perspective. So if you want to give a little bit more insight of like what people expect from this event coming up Saturday and why the verbiage of Black Men International Black Men Day.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like it was important. I feel like there's such a benefit that I get out of practicing nonviolent communication. And my brothers, who we have this event together, we feel the same way. So we had this group amongst ourselves going on for about a year. And at one point it occurred to us, it's like, this is really good. We're really connecting with each other. It feels like this is a safe space where we can be ourselves. But what about our other brothers outside of this circle? And so we realized at that moment that we wanted to make this public and wanted to make it something that all Black men could access. So on Saturday, June 25th, it will be our inaugural International Black Men's Day. And so we invite all Black men in the diaspora. And that could be if you're in Argentina, if you're on the motherland continent of Africa, if you're in Cleveland, Ohio, or Connecticut, or Vegas, wherever you are, Alaska, the North Pole, we want you to be with us because we realize that, I'll speak for myself as a Black man, there is a narrative, and there's a narrative, and then I hear it often, don't get you all in your feelings. Don't get caught in your feelings as if accessing our feelings implies weakness. And actually, for me, it's quite the opposite. When I'm able to access and get in tune with how I'm feeling, that's an empowering place to be because that it informs what's going on inside me. And as I shared before, when my brothers and I come together, we share that same language. So you don't have to be well-versed in nonviolent communication or know anything about that. All we're asking is that if you long for having a space where you can be yourself, speak honestly, not feel judged, and feel supported, we want you to come through. We'll be here. We're going to do it 2 different times on Saturday, June 25th, just because of the different time zones. So speaking on Pacific terms, we'll be going at 6 a.m. Pacific, which I believe is 9 a.m. Eastern. And then we're going to go again at 10 a.m. Pacific, which I believe is 1 p.m. Eastern.
And I like how you have the time frame because it's mindful of the different time zones because it's important. Because you have situations where you set a time zone in the East Coast. It might not be applicable for someone that's in, like, for example, like that's in Japan or even Germany. So in that time frame, I think it's a great time space that no matter what time zone you live on, you could jump on this call. And I think this is important too, because again, it gives an opportunity for people like us to have an opportunity to engage with other people that look like us across the world. You know what I mean? And I think that's important because we have to, as Black men, we have to create that global community. I think that's important for just for generational wealth and just understanding of self and just understanding, like, for example, if you travel to another country, you know what? I met a brother from this network, and so I'm coming to this country, and so at least I know somebody there. So if I'm there, I'm
Yeah.
safe, and I think that's important too.
Yeah, yeah. And you speak about, the last word I heard you say was safe, Ishmael. And I
Yeah,
just want to unpack that for a moment. We
yeah,
use the words like it's a safe space. And I just want to be clear that as a black man, it is important that I have a place that I can go where I don't feel judged, where I can feel seen, where there's a sense of shared reality. And that all equates to safety. I think it's important when we talk about, you know, um, the safety of our black men, both physically, but not just physically, which is important, emotionally. There's that piece there when we talk about mental health and wellness and, going to speak to a therapist. And a lot of times um, there's some energy around that if you go to see a therapist, there's an implication that something is wrong. And for me, it's like flipping that on its head. I believe everyone should have someone to talk to. I do.
yeah.
And my clients, I'm that person that they talk to. So in having International Black Men's Day, we're encouraging having a safe space. We're encouraging the idea of what does it feel like to have a place where you can just vent and express, and it's okay.
And that's important. And then before we end, like, talk about the the thing that you helped put together. I do believe it's called Confidential. Talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Well, first of all, I gotta compliment you, brother, because you certainly went down the Cory Tyler rabbit hole, and you did your research. So
Thank
yes,
you.
I do have a company called Confidant International, and it is a bespoke luxury service that reaches out to high network individuals who need somebody to talk to. So on the one end, I have International Black Men's Day, and by the way, registering for that is absolutely free. There's no cost whatsoever. And then I realized years ago, I said, if I really want to see systemic change, I really need to reach those people in the ivory tower. I really need to connect with those executives and those business people because as much as we talk about communication technology and changing hearts and minds, if I'm not connected to those people in the boardrooms, we're kind of just sitting on our hands. So I have a company called Confidant International, and it's the idea of reaching out to the 1%, the high net worth individuals who have families, who have problems, and I absolutely love it. And I have a group of clients that I have right now, and it's a beautiful thing. And so I changed my role as being an actor and a showbiz kid to a professional confidant. And it was really cool because it's like, wow, I can actually create my own profession. So I utilize nonviolent communication. I've been doing it for 10 years and I absolutely love it. Our website is oneconfidant.com. That's ONECONFIDANT.com. Check us out.
Definitely, definitely. And I appreciate you for jumping on. Before we end this great conversation, what words of wisdom do you have for like a father that's like in their luck and they feel like they're hopeless and they feel like tomorrow may not exist? What advice do you have for that father?
Yeah. So the advice that I would share is the next moment someone feels they're triggered or at their wits' end, I would share a quote from the founder of nonviolent communication, who has passed on some years ago by the name of Marshall Rosenberg, who said, in moments like that, don't do something, be there.
Wow, I like that. That's powerful because at the end of the day, it's just you being there is half of the battle, and then also just having a network of people just to be there because it just takes like 3 seconds to give someone a call and say, "Hey, how you doing? How's your heart? What's going on?"
Yeah,
That
yeah,
can save somebody's life, and I think that's vital. And what you're doing is vital, and then also the event that you're doing this Saturday is important too because again, it it brings down that border when it comes to black men on a global level, which I don't think no one's doing. I know I've been trying to do it on DL on the low, trying to
yeah,
get a lot of people together. So what you're doing, I think is phenomenal. I think people should be joining on Saturday or just following your footsteps and your team and what they're doing when it comes to just bringing black men together on a global level. Because
yeah.
honestly, in this world that we're living in right now, with so much uncertainty, just to bring just black men together on that global level is well needed. And I thank you for doing that, man.
Well, I wanna acknowledge you too, brother, because you have a library. I saw it of podcasts where you're continuing to explore the question of what does it mean to be a black man? What does it mean to be a conscious parent? And to have those conversations. So you're doing the work as well, brother. I just want to acknowledge you on that.
I appreciate that, man. Real love, man. I love you. I'm not afraid to tell another black man I love you. I love you, man. Thank you so
Me
much for
too.
jumping on. Also, just to let you know, I'm also affiliated with the Real Dads Network. And the Real Dads Network is a nonprofit organization out of New York that's all about empowering um, Black fathers, and they also have a Real Dads Club, which is every Thursday where they get together. Basically, what you do with your team is they
Yeah.
get together every Thursday, and then they have a conversation about mental health, just all types of things that the tools that black men need to succeed. I know
Yeah.
today what we're doing today is that we're going to have a guest speaker on today. Goes very vast knowledge when it comes to NFTs,
Oh, very cool.
blockchain, digital wallet, all that good stuff. So
Oh, I love it.
you're welcome to join in. I'll
Yeah.
send you the Zoom link in the DM, and like I said, as we haven't missed a meeting in almost 2.5 years via Zoom.
Wow. Oh,
But
that's what's up.
the club started actually in like in in actually meeting rooms a long time ago,
Hmm.
but because of COVID, they did it Zoom. And so
Yeah.
since the COVID, since that time, I haven't missed one um, Thursday since that time. So like I
Oh,
said, you're
that's
welcome to
beautiful.
join in, or anybody
Absolutely.
that want to join in, they're welcome to join in.
Yeah.
It's about, again, what you're doing and what the Real Dads Network is trying to do is trying to build this community of black men, not just here in the United States, but on a global level, and just create that network where we can just, when you bring people together, the possibilities are endless.
The possibilities are endless. Well, once again, man, I am so thrilled to hear about what you're doing with Real Dads Network, with your podcast. And real quick, I'd just like to give a shout out to my brothers, Morris Irving, who's in Cleveland, Mark Friedman, who's in Connecticut, Michael Christie, he's also in Connecticut, Samuel Odihambo, who's in Nairobi, and my brother Dizzy Bam Godlove, who is in Cameroon, but he'll be on the call from Berlin on Saturday. So we're really going to have an international feel to International Black Men's Day. And I appreciate you giving me a chance to further promote our event.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's important what you're doing, and unfortunately, like there's no other black media out there that's trying to reach out to you, say, "Hey, this is going on, support it." But at least I'm doing my part because I don't want to hear
Yes, sir.
anybody say that there's nothing out there for us. Yeah, there is. It's just people putting it out there.
Yeah, getting the word out.
That's right, brother. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it, man. And like I said, I'll send you that DM with the
Yeah,
link to jump off of the Bro Dad's Club. Send more brothers, and let's make this something bigger. Like for example, like
yeah,
next year, 2023, let's make the International Black Men Day like trending on Twitter, on all social
That's what I'm
media,
saying.
put in people's faces like, yo, we're out here, this exists. I don't want to hear
Yeah.
nothing that to say that it doesn't exist. It does exist. You just need to support it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you could put the link to our registration page in the
I
link.
have it pinned.
Oh,
I have
it's
it
already
pinned.
there. Wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, if you go and click on that link, registration is free. We have 2 different times on Saturday, June 25th, based on whatever time zone you're in. And let's build, family.
That's right, man. Again, I love you, man. Thank you. I appreciate you. Don't be a stranger, man.
Absolutely. I'll reach back out to you.
All right, definitely, brother. All right.
Peace.